Hey, everybody, Happy New Year! Oh my God, it is officially 2026, and I am so happy about that because 2025 sucked. It was bad. I mean, nothing really terrible happened like in previous years when I got cancer and all that other stuff, but it just was a rough year, man. I kind of don't really want a new year this year. I want like a gently used year, give me like a 2015, 2017 model that's
Yeah.
been, previously owned. And I just this whole new year smell thing is just not working for me, but it's going to be a better one.
You want to get your year from CarMax?
So I want to get my year from CarMax where there's guarantees, and when I can get it, I can take it back after a week if I didn't like it, stuff like that. So, you know what I mean?
That's so funny. I feel you, man. Like, I feel like it was like every year I'm just like waiting for the year where it's like an easy one, like just like it's like oh man, that was just like great, no big
We
change.
used to have those. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
It used to be like it was just a crazy year. I think AI did it.
Yeah,
that's probably what happened.
I blame AI, and I blame like DoorDash. I feel like DoorDash has like some
DoorDash
sort
definitely.
of like culpability in this thing. Things are moving.
Wow. There you go. Welcome, everybody. So our guest today is Tyler Weeks, and he is currently Managing Vice President of People Technology Research and Analytics. It's one of those job titles like the one I used to have, where there's like so many words in it, it makes you feel like you're really important. But then whenever you get an introduction letter from LinkedIn, you know that it's spam because it's got that gigantic job title. You know what I mean? But you're in charge of like basically tech and analytics for Marriott, which is this tiny little company that nobody's ever heard of. And it's the hospitality industry. And before that, you used to be head of HR data science at Intel.
Yeah.
For that, you were a consultant, and you actually worked at a national laboratory for a short while there, LNL. So quite the colorful history.
Yeah, look, here's the thing about HR is like none of us meant to be here. Like there was never like, it's not like there was like a little 5-year-old Tyler that was looking up at the stars and thinking,
"Mommy, Daddy, I want to be in HR.
I'm going to be an astronaut, a rock star,
or an HR representative,
or an HR." But maybe I did, and I'm here to tell you that dreams do come true.
Right.
Yeah, look, I've had a pretty like I've enjoyed my career, and I love where I've landed. My background is in physics, so I started my career as a physicist and was doing some really fun R&D work, really hard R&D work at Intel. And a couple years into that, like my curiosity started to shift from like the work I was doing to the company.
The people doing
like,
it. Oh.
Like that's the people doing it. It made no sense. Like that was weird. Like I could like electrons, plasmas, like all that stuff. I understood that. People were nuts.
But they are just as unpredictable as quantum particles.
More unpredictable. That's the thing, is they make no sense. So like, I like, that's why I was like, and here's the thing is that like physicists were the most arrogant of all scientists. So I was like, how hard could it be?
They were, or they are? Sorry, are you saying this was?
They are the most arrogant. So I was like, how
not nuclear physicists, just physicists.
Just in general, as a rule, as a group, we think we can solve anything. and I would issue this challenge to any of my compatriots out there. Come give this a try. This is
Come
so
give TA a try. Yeah, you can't solve this.
this is
Now
so hard.
the quantum entanglements that we have in our industry are let's just say far beyond comprehension, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word. But isn't it funny though how in physics, like people in physics will say that it is the fundamental science of everything, right? Because everything is made up of particles or energy, and particles are energy, and it's like this. You can trace it all back to it's all physics, but really it's all math.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's true.
and really it's all chemistry.
Well, okay, so now those are fighting words. So here's what I'll tell you.
That's what
One day,
people say.
and you just stepped into a little rivalry here.
No, I know. This is what I wanted to.
One day, a bunch of physicists got together and invented chemistry. So just like that's our little.
Didn't
story.
a bunch of mathematicians get together and invent physics though?
They did, but we don't talk about it. Actually, here's the thing: is the only reason I got into physics is because I was like, my first major in college was archaeology, and I was like gonna be like Indiana Jones, and I had a professor that was like, "There's no jobs in this," and I was like, I'd been pretty good at math, and I was like listening to my roommate work on a physics problem, and I was like, "Oh, that's just calculus. I'll go try that." Turns out,
so you went into physics from math.
Yeah.
Wow.
It turns out most of the math that we're familiar with that we've like was all invented to describe physical process, like calculus and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All of that was invented to describe things that were happening. And actually, it's the thing that I actually really love about understanding organizations, understanding how we hire, understanding talent in general, is that it's not like I've put all of those years on the shelf. They actually really inform how I think about an organization, and really kind of understanding what it like when you say you have an assessment and that it has a certain amount of like predictive power. What does that actually mean? Like what can I actually expect from that? And it's been a lot of fun.
I think human resources is the least science of the human sciences.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put a positive spin on it.
It's more social anthropology.
I think there's a lot of opportunity, and
right.
That's what I don't think we need more data scientists. We just
that's what I'm saying. It's not a scientific field.
We need more scientists. There's a whole field of biopsychology.
We need logicians.
Yeah,
we don't have any of those, right? We need ethicists. We don't have any of those.
We actually do. So here's the thing. Yeah. So like if you look at in the field of IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology,
okay. If you expand
this is what they do. They are sort of like the science behind HR. But I've got some amazing colleagues. I love working with IO psychologists. I've learned a ton from them over the last decade or so. But what I want to see more of is I want to see more physicists. I want to see more chemists. I want to see more of like there's a different set of skills that come with that I think if we partner with IO psychologists could be an incredibly powerful collaboration. I want to see more of that. Like
but it doesn't really gel that often. It just doesn't happen frequently because they don't speak the same language. It's, if you go back to the fundamentals, the thread that I was following or I was pulling in disassembling that sweater there is a bunch of mathematicians got together and invented physics. But you know what? A bunch of philosophers got together and invented math.
That's true.
And so, right. So at the base of all of this, you have what's called logos, which is logic.
Mm-hmm.
And so logic is really at the basis of all this, and it's also the furthest thing from HR.
I don't think it has to be. Actually, funny story.
No, it doesn't have to be. Why is it though?
Did you know that like the word physicist is not that old? In fact, Einstein was known as a mathematician.
Right.
Like that's actually a bit more of a modern word that we say physicist. But I think you're absolutely right. I think that sort of there's a thoughtful approach that I think we can take to solve problems. The challenge is many of the things that we're trying to do aren't deterministic. It's not that I can turn a
Right.
knob and then get like me predicting what you're going to do is impossible, you as an individual. But me predicting what 100,000 people are going to do, like
Mhm.
groups are very predictable, people are not. And
Yep.
that is kind of the fundamental disconnect. Like a lot of physical scientists come over or will try or have tried to kind of step into this world, and that's where they stumble is
Yeah, that
they
makes a
they're
lot of sense.
they're
Wasn't
looking
it
for the
Asimov that said, I think it was Isaac Asimov that said, that he's a humanist. He said, "I love humanity. It's people I hate."
I think he probably did in his foundation series. He's got like a science that's called like histobiology or
Yeah, I know
what's
what
he
you're talking
call it?
about. It's been
And
a while.
it's basically this idea that you could predict groups and not people.
You can, yeah,
Yeah,
because of the um, statistical anomalies that are predictable when you have so many chaos. It's entropy, so much
yeah, 100, yeah,
happening. Yeah,
yeah. He's
yeah,
totally right.
histology or something. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So I think that you're onto something there. You've scaled recruiting systems in some pretty intense tech environments.
Yep, yeah, yeah.
Um, where do teams, put your intermediary hat between logos and HR,
Mm.
right? And think about, where do you see teams losing speed, getting stuck in the mud the most? Is it sourcing? I like to call it candidate identification. Is
Mhm.
it candidate engagement, screening, scheduling, or is it decision making? What is the sacred cow that would make the best hamburger in that pack?
Yeah, so if you're asking me specifically about TA,
Yeah, where do we in TA lose the most speed?
like, yeah, look,
Macro.
I think there's a few problems when I sort of like categorize them that I have seen that is true for
Mhm.
kind of every team. There is what I call the track and chase problem, which I think is where you lose a ton of inertia or energy to this thing. And it track and chase shows up everywhere from I shared a slate or a short list with a hiring manager,
Yep.
and I'm following up to see if they reviewed the short list. We had all these interviews, and now I'm following up to see like what get the feedback or the interview notes or whatever. um,
Yeah.
there's an offer out to candidate. I'm chasing that
It's
candidate.
like, this is project management in a way, right? It's
Yeah,
Kanban boards, the Trello, but and
yeah,
sometimes ATSs have a view like that because it sort of makes sense. But the problem is that it's not linear. Things deviate and like get moved around a lot because it's human and it's not logical.
that's right. And so your recruiters or just your TA teams end up spending an inordinate amount of time chasing people. They
Right.
have a thing out and they need to know that somebody read it or did a thing and did the action
Yep.
and so like that one's huge.
It's about
Another
28% of their workload or 28% of their bandwidth.
Probably, yeah, yeah. I
Yep.
think that's about right. I think the other problem that's closely related, it's the CYA problem,
That's
where
about 22% of their bandwidth.
they have
Mhm.
when I in the past when I looked
Justification,
yes,
tracking,
what
auditing, what have you been doing, covering your rear. That's right. And some of that, you know what? We unfortunately created that ourselves.
yeah, we created ourselves, but also like some of it I don't think that like if I'm a hiring like we talk a lot about like hiring at a large scale. When we talk about statistics in
Mhm.
hiring, we're usually in a large company, you're talking about thousands of hires.
Yeah.
If you come at this from the other angle, and let's say I'm a hiring manager and I individually am going to hire one or two people a year, every single one of those hires that I do get, especially in a constrained environment, like they really matter to me. I really need
You
to make
should.
sure, because like I don't care what the company's doing. I need my team to work to be good and have somebody that meshes with my team and is going to produce and that I want to work with. And so like hiring somebody is a lot less like buying a tube of toothpaste than it is like buying a house. Like it doesn't matter how many details or how many videos Zillow has. The chances you're going to buy a house based on data is almost zero. You want to
Right.
walk through, you want to smell it.
Because it's a
Honestly,
craft, not
you
a
want-
factory.
Right.
It's not an assembly line. It's a craft.
Right. You're going to have to live in that house and live in that neighborhood. And you're going to want to know all sorts of things about how it feels to be
Right.
there. I think hiring managers are looking at somebody that they're going to have to work with for a long time. They want to know that they can work with this person, that their team can work with this person. And so they want that contact. And so, yeah, they're going to ask you for a lot of information, especially if they only think they're going to hire once or twice a year. And so I think like, in that sense, a recruiter ends up being a lot more like a realtor. And they're like, and so when I've interviewed recruiters in the past, and I'm not speaking for Marriott, this is previous work.
Prior.
And I've asked them where they do their work and like what they're doing. What I have found is that like almost all of them do most of their work in a combination of like Outlook. They have a very complex set of
Right.
Outlook like folders that they maintain.
They live in their inbox.
It's like that is like everything they ever sent to every hiring manager they support. So when the hiring manager gets mad and says, "Oh, the recruiter never sent me candidates," they go, "No, on the 13th I sent you. Here's the email." The other place that they work is in Excel because they keep all these like note like lists. And
both of those, Tyler, are so completely unnecessary.
Right. And they're in Outlook, LinkedIn, and Excel. That's all Microsoft. So if you ask me who owns TA, it is not Workday, it is not Oracle, it is not SAP, it's Microsoft. And like I think one of the big gaps is sort of assuming that the ATS is the center of their world. Like if you let go of that assumption and you go, okay, like let's look at how people and where they work, I think you get closer to some of that like churn that's wasting their energy.
The ATS is the biggest lie in the history of the world. It is the biggest fallacy in the name of a product or a technology suite or whatever you want to call it, a category. Applicant tracking systems do not track applicants.
Say more. I'm curious. Okay, now you've got my interest here. Say more.
Applicant tracking systems track requisitions, the life cycle of a requisition. Open rec, work rec, fill rec. It's not open candidate, work candidate, close candidate. It's requisition based. There are multiple candidates in a rec. There are multiple candidates in multiple recs. There are multiple recs, but it's all about the rec. Once the rec closes, that project is complete. So if you look at a project management board of any kind, any project management solution, they all have very similar, racy type charts. It's who's responsible, who does what are the steps, when these are completed, what's the next step, and then when this. So what is the process? The process is a rec is open and a rec is closed. Candidates do not matter.
It's interesting. I mean, like, what's interesting for me when I realized that the reason it's called a requisition is because these were modeled after old invoicing systems.
Yeah,
right.
It's a request. Yep, purchase.
It's an invoice. It's a purchase.
It's what comes before the PO, I think.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like,
I need to requisition 10 pounds of steel. I need to requisition 10 candidates. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I'm defining the requirements of what I need. I'm putting it out to bid, and I'm sort of like collecting bids, and then I'm going to select the winner and then issue the PO.
Right? Which is why when I invented sourcing, I called it sourcing. Because from procurement, right?
Right.
When I was first doing this in 1996, there wasn't a word for this because you were a recruiter. That's what you did. In fact, we actually used to call ourselves headhunters back then.
Sure.
But we became, recruiters, and then, we became employment professionals or whatever. The point is, that job didn't, sourcing was a component of it, but it wasn't called
Yeah.
sourcing. It was just
Yeah.
called recruiting. So when I was trying to figure out what to call this thing, because I was traveling all over the world talking about why you need to specialize in this, the first name that I came up with was awful. It didn't work and it didn't stick. And it was called cyber sleuthing, which before the age of the internet, I had no idea there was already a cyber sleuthing, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was. So
Right.
that one went, but by the time 1999 came around, that one went out the window. My first newsletter where I was sending out, articles and emails to recruiters in the late 90s was called cyber sleuthing. But then we realized, it was called, Julia's right. She says it was called researching. Researching was the job that the recruiter did to find candidates, right? But then I thought, what is this like? And I thought, you know what? This is a lot like procurement. It's supply chain. It's, a requisition for materials. What is the raw material of hiring? It's candidates. So we're sourcing the raw material that we utilize in the manufacturing of hires. So that's where that came from. Little did I know that was going to become a debate 15 years later, but the point is that it is exactly that. It is a process that should be, going back to the ATS, about the function of that requisition. So that's really what the ATS does. It doesn't track a candidate. In fact, I would say it's more like an applicant trapping system, because it traps them into this workflow. I mean, how often do you see somebody apply for a job, they're a perfect fit, but they never even get looked at, and then they get dispositioned, which, by the way, if you look that up in the dictionary, it means throwing it in the garbage. But they get dispositioned and nobody ever looks at them again. And now, because they've been dispositioned, the next time they apply for a job, a recruiter looks at them and goes, oh, they've already been rejected in the past, so they reject them again.
Yeah. Look,
that's a trap.
I mean, like I honestly, I think this is one of the big opportunities, not just in TA, but generally when you're talking about talent within a company, is like the supply chain model really doesn't work when you talk about people. And the reason
is, it doesn't.
Unlike aluminum, people have opinions.
Right? There's a shelf life.
you like, the example I like to use is you could go run a skills assessment for delivery driver at 100,000 person company.
Yep.
You probably have 90,000 people that could be delivery drivers.
Right.
That doesn't mean that's your supply, because it's the people that can do it and the people that want to do it
and are available to do it now.
And are available. That's right. So like, you're right in the sense that, like, if you want to really do talent, you need a map. You need to map three things. You need to map the availability, like the opportunity, like where do I need that work, the ability, like who can do it, and the interest, like who actually wants to do it, and the overlap of those three things. But that's not, like, you don't track that in when you're talking about raw materials. Like, what is the aluminum think?
The aluminum doesn't get to the factory and go, no, I do not want to be here. I'm out.
This is not what I was planning.
This is not what the aluminum doesn't like walk out, like.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, absolutely. So I think the answer to the question then is where is the point where we lose speed? I think you're saying those two things that you pointed out were the tracking and covering CYA and the justification and all that, which is about 40%, 45% if you put those two together. So it really isn't about speed. It really isn't about quality. It's about this, I guess, overhead of workflow junk that we've artificially created, some because we need, some because it's government regulatory. I mean, we have, well, you probably knew this, but there are 13 different agencies that have oversight and can legislate over recruiting. There's only one that can send you to jail. The EEOC is the only one that you can do prison time for. But there are 12 others that have audit and oversight, and are responsible for this function. But most recruiters can't even tell you about one.
Yeah, look, I actually think here's why one of the things that makes me excited about AI has nothing to do with the technology. I think what it is doing is that it's breaking a lot of things that we in the last 20 years have come to sort of expect to be the norm
Yeah.
that aren't that
It's
never
always
were
been that way.
that were never true before. So like
Mhm.
one of my favorite ones is that the highest likelihood, and this everyone knows this, right? This isn't a surprise. The best way to get a job is through someone you know.
Right.
The best way to find a candidate is through someone you know. It's
Mhm.
referrals. Has always been that way.
It is.
Never changed, except somewhere around 2012, there was a brief couple of years where if you go look at some of the data out there, it was about 50-50. Our ability to apply online to blind applications, like you had a couple of years where you actually had a decent chance of getting a job. About half of jobs were probably filled by online
Mm.
applications, whereas historically it was like, it's like more like 30% now. But
Yeah.
like, and now everybody's freaking out and going, hiring's broken. I can't just apply to a bunch of jobs online and get a job. Well, before 2000, it was never that way.
It was never that way either. Right.
We've sort of like acclimated to this norm where for some, like we've turned recruiting into like inbound marketing, where it's just like we're gonna fill, and we talk about the funnel and we talk about maximizing leads. All you're doing is maximizing disappointment, right? Like you're driving thousands of people to apply for a single role, and it has always been a matter of connecting people to people, like through your network.
Yeah.
So here's the punchline. I actually think you can put whatever words you want around it, like talent advisor. There's all these sort of words that people want to change the name of recruiter to, like eventually. But like, I think the recruiter with their little black book of candidates that they have vetted, that they know, that they've got relationships with, are going to become incredibly valuable, especially as it gets harder and harder for me to tell who a real applicant is. For
Yeah.
me to know, like, of the thousands of people that just applied to this job, who's really looking, who's really available, whose resume is real, who's not a bot. Like, the person that's got that curated, like, set of relationships is going to be incredibly valuable to me. So I actually think we're like on the verge of a time when the value to the org of a true, like, that researcher, sourcer, like that function
is the relationship.
I think that whoever owns those relationships is going to be incredibly valuable.
Well, it's always been that way. It hasn't gone away. And even for that brief period of time where the applicants volume, it maybe exceeded the employee referrals volume, you have to go back and recognize that was not actually originated as an online applicant. And there was a lot of conversation back in those days. Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. So,
right.
There was a lot of conversations around source of hire. This may be even precede you. I don't even know if it's even a big deal anymore.
Yes, no, I know, very, very familiar with source of
A
hire.
lot of debate about source of hire. And my biggest contention with that entire conversation was that we were not tracking source of hire. We were tracking last point of entry.
Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. So we didn't know where people were coming from. We just knew when they got there what parking spot they used.
Yeah.
But how they got there is a million different ways. And we then started giving credence to, these sources because we had to justify the spend. We just dropped $100,000 on a LinkedIn license. We got to show that we're making hires from that. So we essentially created LinkedIn because we were driving candidates to there. In order to apply, you needed to go to LinkedIn. We drove that.
Yeah, no, we did.
Let me sort of fill in the blank that I think blank that just kind of popped in, the question mark in your head. So my friend Julia told me about this awesome company. And so I went on LinkedIn to find them and apply for the job, but I'm really an employee referral because Julia told me about it. She referred me.
Yeah, that's right. No, so like I think you're 100% right. There's this problem with attribution models.
It's attribution modeling, exactly.
And
Yep.
putting too much stake in, like, it's not like Coca-Cola is probably, they probably do care where you bought a can of soda from, but they're not spending as much money on making sure they have Coca-Cola in Walmart as they are in running ads during Christmas, right? Like, it's there's a motivation thing there that happens of, like, OpenAI right now has no problem hiring talent, and it has nothing to do with whether or not they came through LinkedIn or like they came through any other source. They're like, it has everything to do with just like the brand recognition, like the prestige that comes with working for OpenAI, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. So, well, I think it's a conundrum, because it all ties back to, you were talking about AI, and I was going to actually go into that a little bit. It all ties back to the ability to make decisions, I think.
That's right.
Judgment, I guess, is probably a better way of describing that. Decision making being, there's a decision science. Literally, it's called decision science. So maybe it's not that, because now I'm going to getting too clear. It's really judgment. It's human judgment. And what you're saying is AI has the potential to aid, enhance, magnify the power of that judgment, because it can look at, first of all, it can look at a bigger scale than humans can look. AI can absorb it's big data. AI can absorb hundreds of thousands of points of data, much more than a human could absorb, and multiply that times, hundreds of thousands of instances at the same time. It's literally a matter of scale. So I think that I'm following where you're going, but where do you draw the line personally, not speaking on behalf of any organization, but where you personally draw the hard line of what actually makes things worse, where AI becomes I hear the positive, right? It becomes a way to help us apply better judgment because it has better data, more data, can process more of it, can process it more fairly if it's done right, et cetera. But where is that hard line that you don't want to cross, where AI actually becomes a magnifying glass for making things worse?
Look, so let me just go back to one thing. So what I'm saying is that I think AI is actually making it so easy for candidates to apply to so many jobs.
Yep.
That the value of an application has gone to essentially zero.
Right.
It tells you almost nothing. The fact
that's valid. Yeah.
And I think that is what that is forcing, is us to go back to the basics of understanding that these decisions are emotional, personal decisions. And so, like, recruiters are going to play a bigger role in helping you, especially for like senior or high value roles, you getting comfortable as the hiring manager that this is a real person who's really going to come in and do the job that I can get along with. Like, that's what people want to know. I think that, like, there's any of this language or talk around like, oh, recruiting is dead, AI is going to be, there's no recruiters because AI is going to do it. Like, it doesn't even make sense, because like,
no,
that's like saying there's going to be no such thing as
travel agents,
real estate, like that. Yeah. Like, we'll just, like, AI will be so good that you'll never have to do a home tour. You'll just sort of like,
AI will be so good that you'll never need a travel agent, yet there's still travel agents.
Like
AI will be so good that you'll never need a librarian, yet there's still librarians.
Or even more ridiculously, AI was so good you'll never need to travel. Like, no, that's sort of like missing the point, is that people like doing that. So no,
100%.
So I think that was my point. I think that your question around like, where's the tipping point?
Where's the line? Yeah, so you can walk a fine line as long as you know where the boundaries are. So what's that boundary where you want to not fall over into the abyss?
I think that boundary line is really, I mean, it's in the decision making. Like
Right. The judgment, right?
who's responsible for this decision? And I'm hesitating a little on your question, not because I don't have an answer. I'm trying to give you like the most thoughtful answer.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I think a company is a group of people.
Hmm.
It's a team. If you did the thought experiment, like let's just step out of TA for a second. Let's imagine that you had a group of like somebody started a group of agents,
A
and
tribe, a cohort.
those agents,
Yep.
a company that was 100% comprised of AI agents.
Hmm.
They collaborated, they did all the work, they charged people. Is that a company? Is that like, so like maybe that thing has accrued some money that sits in a bank account, and then it spends that money to grow more money in the bank account, but like that isn't that entity. It'd be hard to argue that that's a company, or that thing is creating any real value. I think you have to have people. I think you have to have like humanity for it to be something that we would consider like worthwhile. And if you're going to have people, you have to have people like building those relationships. And I think where AI is going to help us, yes, there's going to be some transaction stuff. There's going to be some stuff around creativity that it helps us produce more and produce faster. But ultimately, I think that the most productive teams, the ones that like stand out and the companies that are most competitive, are going to be the most socially healthy companies. I think we're going to see a thing where if you don't have, and I think this is the bright line, if you're moving so heavily into AI that you're actually jeopardizing the social health and connectivity of your teams, like the time they're spending with each other, face-to-face time, all of those things, you're going to hit a ceiling pretty quickly and not be able to outcompete or have new ideas or sort of like be more productive than your competitors. I think that is a really key piece. And so like as much as people hate return to office, there is decades of research that show that there is no better way. I mean, there are ways to try and promote like collaboration and ideas and like productivity. There is nothing more effective than being together, to like being with people. And that's a thing that we've got to like, we are going to have to.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I get that, but I think that that's the being with people part that has to do with collaboration, not the being with people part that has to do with sitting in a cubicle, isolated from everybody else because you happen to be the only person in HR in that building. That's not collaboration.
Yeah,
that's not productive.
Sure.
All of your meetings are virtual, and you're never going to, collaborate with anybody face to face. So, in that sense, return to office is pointless.
Well, yeah, like look, you could construct a perfectly isolated, like imagine you had a building where one person sat on each floor. That would be worse than working from home, because not only are you just on the phone all day, but you now have a commute and you're on the phone all day. Like working remotely from the office is the worst.
It's literally what it is, working remotely. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it used to be work from home. Now it's work from chair in your office.
Yeah. Now, so like you're right.
You're stuck.
It's not by default better. It's not that you send everybody back to the office and
because
then,
they need to physically be there, right?
Because like companies were there was plenty of inefficient companies when we were all in the office all the time. So it's not default better, but it's default worse. Like if you really put thought into it and you really design for like having teams that are co-located and have a good dynamic, and you really invest in culture and all that stuff, you will always be able to do it better in person than virtually. Like there's no way around it. But you're right. Like you could,
but you only need to do that sometimes. You don't need to do that 40 hours a week.
And I think where it relates to recruiting is having people want that. Like as much as we complain about return to office or commutes, like when you do walk into an office or into a building that's got a great culture, that feels good, there's a good energy there, people do want that. And I think that like your career site is never going to be as effective at recruiting people as just an amazing experience when they walk in the building, right? Like it smells good, it feels good, there's friendly people around, like go spend your money on that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, we're definitely onto something with that judgment and FaceTime and relationship building being kind of where you want to draw the line. So not letting the robots take over that part of it, or I don't even know if they can. Honestly, I don't. They are not going to. So I don't even know why I'm even debating that. But when you're talk about the resistance inside the house, what's been the biggest source of internal pushback in your experience with these rollouts, implementations, technology, systems, analytics, all these big things that you've these systems, system being any collection of tasks, right? So it doesn't have to, system doesn't equal software necessarily, but you know what I mean? All these systems and processes and software and applications and all that. What's been the biggest resistance internally, pushback? Has it been recruiters, hiring managers, or leadership that resist the most?
I think there's different kinds of resistance, right? I think recruiters.
What's the most surprising source of resistance?
The surprising source?
Yeah, where you're like, what? I did not expect that.
The most surprising source is actually none of them, right? Like,
oh, okay.
So
that's surprising to me.
Yes, like I don't see recruiters as being any more or less change resistant than any other group. Like you're always going to have there's always the recruiter in the group that's like they have
entrenched.
Every Chrome extension.
Like, we're not going to do this.
That came out they're always trying new stuff. Like there's
you're going the other way. Sorry.
They're like they've got tools you've never heard of, and they're like, I mean, they're teaching everybody else how to do it. You've always got those. You've always got the ones that have done it forever, and they're like, this is my method. I don't see them as particularly challenging or particularly they're about the same. I think the big challenge is
thank you.
The big challenge really comes in for the business case for change. So it's not really specifically leadership. It's that in the HR world in general, these systems get sold based on soft dollars, but they have to get justified based on hard dollars. So what that means is that they'll say to you, hey, this is going to save every HR person or every recruiter or every manager 15 minutes. And if you add up those 15 minutes and their salaries, this new ATS is going to save you $5 billion next year. It is not saving you $5 billion, right? No, you can't point to finance. You can't hand a check back to finance that says, here's the $5 billion we just saved. That doesn't exist. So what you end up having to do is go, okay, where can I save money on software, on even headcount? Like, where's the real savings that justifies the investment in this thing that I want to go change?
So it's not the change, it's the how do I pay for it?
How do I pay for it?
Okay.
And here's the where it gets really tricky is when it's got good automation, and you can see on a PowerPoint slide how it's going to, maybe I need fewer sourcers, maybe I need to reconfigure my teams, maybe I need whatever it is. The challenge, the question is, do you reorg before you have the technology so that you're ready to use it, or do you bring in the technology and then look at changing the team? Nobody seems to have figured that out. So all of the frustration you see around AI right now, where people are like, oh, well, there's all these AI programs and nobody's saved $1. It's because you kind of have this chicken egg problem where
actually it's because they're not really AI, but
there's some of that. But there's a chicken egg problem where there's a phenomenon out there called Parkinson's law, where the time you take to do a task will expand to fill the time allotted, which means that as I take work off your plate, you'll just take longer without even realizing it. You'll just take longer to do the rest of your tasks. So you personally never actually feel less busy. No matter how much I automate, you feel the same amount of busy. So like, if I then come to you and say, hey, yeah, I know your colleague just left, we're not going to backfill them, but we did give you all this automation, you're like panicking because you're like, but I'm still very busy. Like you didn't take anything off my plate. So like, that's where the thing happens where it's like, it like, even if you're trying to do, you've done everything right, you've got the business case, you've automated some specific tasks, your teams are feeling very scared because like they still feel busy. And so like, then what you end up doing is not really getting the savings that you thought you were going to get. And then you feel like it's the technology's fault, but really it's not leadership. It's not the recruiters or HR or anybody else. It's this like, it's this fundamental challenge of how do you implement automation and then reinvest the time savings. Like let's say, you know, like let's say I want to like automate all of the work of of a bunch of coordinators and I want to make them sourcers. Well, like, how do I actually do that is a thing that every team it has a challenge with, and it's no one person's fault. That's why it's so hard to solve.
Well, the right answer is if you have a team of coordinators or recruiters that you want to make sourcers, is you pick up the phone and you call Shally Steckrell at tsiuniversity.com.
You just solved it.
And yeah, no, but I totally get what you're saying. And that's really insightful. You know, I've sort of been building up to this, and you probably already saw the pattern, but I got like an apex question that I wanted to lead up to as we draw kind of close to the end of our time here together. And all of this just sort of culminates with that. And it's this question. It's highly unpopular, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail, but I'm going to go anyway. A lot of teams and leaders, hiring leadership, organizational leadership, use this metric, and they obsess with this metric called time to fill. I think personally that is the absolute most useless, pointless, ridiculous, and worthless measurement that you could take of a process that is about relationships and quality. So I want to literally, if somebody asked me and said, Shally, if you had a magic wand and you could wave your magic wand and remove one thing from our industry, what would it be? My instant and immediate answer with zero hesitation would be make it as if time to fill never existed. Like remove it from the face of the earth.
From history. Like
it's
scrub
useless.
Scrub it from history.
Scrub it. It's useless. Yeah. It does nothing but harm. All it does, there's no benefit to it. So knowing that you agree with me on that completely,
I do. Yeah.
What is the metric that we should obsess over instead? Because once I wave my wand and time to fill disappears, we're going to have to replace it with some other top metric.
Yeah. Okay.
What is it? And why isn't anybody brave enough to make it their North Star?
So mine that I would replace it with is time to respond. And I've been sort of like
respond to candidate, hiring manager, just anything.
So it depends. So
it depends.
So you make it an experience metric, and you say,
okay, gotcha. In various ways.
From the time that a candidate applies,
respond to the candidate.
How long did it take for somebody to respond? Did that candidate get a meaningful response from me? So not just a hey, thank you for your application, but like they either got invited to an interview, they got dispositioned, they had a pre-screening call with a recruiter.
They were legitimately moved forward in the process.
Something that said, I got contacted. How long is that? So like when I was at Intel, we actually did this. We started looking at time to respond. Here's what was interesting is that our time to fill, which is like it was like 45 days or something like that.
That's literally the industrial grade.
It's always like
average.
45 days, right? Yeah. No matter what you do. When we looked at time to respond, it was like 56 days. So what that means is that most of those like time to fill and all those metrics, what they're measuring is the best case scenario.
No, they're not. They're not. They're measuring a cluster. So what happens if you take a cluster of data, you know this, if you take a cluster of data and you average it out, The 45 is a made up number. Nobody gets hired in 45 days.
Oh, yeah. But even then, that cluster is based on the one person that got hired. So the person that was
that's right.
So like
that's
if
right.
like on the freeway of that survey, it's like you're only measuring traffic in the commuter lane. But what you're not seeing is that it took 55 days or 60 days for your typical candidate on that rec to hear anything from you, which means that most people are getting a much worse experience. And the reason they're
basically
doing
almost everybody that didn't get hired.
It's almost everybody that get hired. And the reason is because recruiters are trying to be efficient and they're hanging on to all those applicants until they actually close the offer and like, get to like pre-hire or whatever in the ATS, and then they all get auto dispositioned, right? Like,
and that explains the panic. You just nailed it. That explains the panic at the disco, because everybody is worried that there's too many applicants. And so what you just described is happening at a scale unlike anywhere else.
Exactly.
And so literally everybody's like, oh my God, now I got 50,000 people that I'm going to piss off.
100%. So now you got 10,000 people that applied for this job that you used to get 100 applicants for. You just auto dispositioned 999,000 of them. It had nothing to do with AI. And AI didn't do that. No. But like, if you go on LinkedIn, everyone's like, AI dispositioned me. No, it didn't.
Somebody pushed the button.
Like, you just used AI to apply to 10,000 jobs just like everybody else. So like, you're just one of the 999,000 that got dispositioned by a candidate. Right. It's just a form letter. We've always had form letters. That's not
we did.
Like, yeah. So that I would change, is to pay. But I would replace that time to fill with time to respond, and I'd make that my North Star.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. I feel like we just need to do this again. Like we're like brothers from another mother, man. I mean, it's just
feelings mutual, Shally. This has been awesome.
It's been great.
Thank you for having me on, by the way.
I'm sad that you got to go, but everybody's got to move on. However, I would like you to stay if you have maybe 5 minutes for an after hours piece for our members. So folks, if you're watching or listening or reading this or whatever you might happen to be doing, here's what I'm talking about is the after hours content that is extra for members only is available at tsiuniversity.com. And it's a benefit that we offer our members. So this show doesn't have any sponsorship. There's no vendors that influence my conversations, which is why I'm able to bring in people like Tyler to speak their mind, because there's nobody paying for this. However, I do need to make some money to pay the bills. So if you join TSI University, even as a $12 a month member, you get all these extra benefits, like, for example, some additional analysis and after hours. So if you don't mind, we'll stay on for that. And otherwise, for everybody that is online, thank you for being with us today or listening in. Please do tune in next week, where we will actually have a gentleman by the name of Adam Meekhoff, Meekhoff. I hope I spelled that correctly. You might want to look him up. It's going to be really fun. Until then, thanks again, Tyler, and everybody, be kind to yourselves. Take care.